honor for me to be here amongst each and every one of you at the second Jakarta International Competition Forum. May we please begin with a round of applause, please. Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, the JICF is a multi-stakeholder forum that was proudly initiated in 2015 to remark the important milestone of competition policy as the main pillars of Indonesian economic development plan. The forum mainly envisaged to provide avenue to pertinent stakeholders in Indonesia and the region on the cutting edge and global competition issues. The second JICF will take theme on disruptive innovation, competition policy and challenge to emerging markets, to highlight escalating issues of balancing competition and sectoral policies as the trend of e-commerce in Indonesia and the region is increasing. Discussion on these issues shall start in order to anticipate future impact of e-commerce, especially online platform to market competition. Now, ladies and gentlemen and distinguished guests, before we begin today's event, I would like to invite the chairman of KPPU, Mr. Muhammad Syakawi Rauf, to deliver his remarks.
Good morning, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, panelists, my friend from international competition authorities. A very good morning to you all. Allow me to welcome you all for the second Jakarta International Competition Forum, a biennial event initiated to bring multi-stakeholder awareness to cutting-edge international competition issues. Today's conference chose the theme of disruptive innovation, competition policy and challenges to emerging markets, to gain insight for Indonesia in anticipating the rapid growth of digital economy and its impact on competition. It is an honor for KPPU and Indonesia to have prominent guests, friends from the other competition authorities, international experts, and influence practitioners at this very event. I believe that our presence shows our strong commitment toward the development of competition policy in Indonesia and the region. Distinguished panelists, session chairs, ladies and gentlemen. The digital technology and social networking have altered how we evaluate and value goods and services. Traditional commerce has been upended by technology's ability to create new routes to market, resulting in a more engaging and satisfied customer. Digital technology is rapidly transforming the products and services that we use today. Currently, there has been digital transformation within the entire market. Multiple industries are being connected or networked together like we have never seen before by digital technology. In the future, many experts predicted that some changes will take place in the world. Our organizational structure and work culture will change. Automatization will remove the existing supporting organization. Social collaboration among us will improve and change the way we connect. The use of virtual and augmented reality as well as artificial intelligence will increase. Some experts thought that our educational self-focus and education for mental or creativity, since that is one thing that an artificial intelligence will be able to replace. Information itself will be decentralized and distributed as no one can solely keep their own information. Innovation cannot be upheld in this robust growth of digital economy Change is something that we do to respond to such development. Distinguished panelists, session chairs, ladies and gentlemen, since Tim Berners-Lee introduced the World Wide Web, an internet that was not simply a way to send files from one place to another, but was itself a web information that anyone on the internet could retrieve. This revolution created new types of market that we don't even see it's coming. The line between market is obscure. We begin to know about two-sided market or multiple-sided market in competition analysis. In competition law enforcement, this also posed its own challenges, specifically in questioning whether the traditional tools of competition assessment can be adapted to market with disruptive innovation, because generally the market with disruptive innovation owns characteristics of two-sided market and network effects, while the maintenance and preservation of process of competition is essence for the achievement of antitrust law objectives. Law enforcement on disruptive innovation shall be able to provide balance between the process of innovation and market openness for the potential innovator. It is common that competition analysis focus on static efficiency on the market resulting from cartel or unilateral anti-competitive behavior, and less attention to the impact of innovation, and to focus on the market definition. By the robust development of the industry, competition analysis, which focus on market definition, will not be able to anticipate optimum measure for market power and competition effect. Distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, it is unwise to stop innovation just because our culture or our way to talk cannot be fully adjusted. Our economy will not go further. Therefore, it is important for us to change our traditional thought to welcome the wave of digital innovation. As George Bernard Shaw said some decades ago, progress is impossible without change. And who cannot change their mind cannot change anything. People must adapt the change in digital market. Government and law enforcement must adapt to the change. It is not easy task, but we must take our best step right now. And before I enter to this room, the journalist asked me, Mr. Chairman, why you still use paper for your speech today? I say my answer is very simple. I am too in transition to change my behavior, to transform from the conventional one to digital one. Distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, competition authority is not excluded from the need for change. We need to adapt the new method of competition analysis and evidence gathering. The second Jakarta International Competition Forum takes the theme of disruptive innovation and competition policy is to jointly ask you for adapting to the changes and for our interest to the seek new methods and anticipate new issues in disruptive innovation. We are honored to have line of pertinent session chairs and panelists at this conference. I personally express my highest appreciation to you all, among others, McKinsey Company, Gojek Indonesia, Mr. Nadim, Google, Government of Jakarta, Competition Commission of Singapore, Melbourne University, Mr. Hassan, OECD, Mr. Antonio, thank you. ACCC, Australia Competition and Consumer Commission, MOFCOM, China, FTC, CSIS, IDEA, New South Wales Government, Japan Fair Trade Commission, and the Coordinating Ministry of Economic Affairs. We hope this conference will expand our network and bring high guests on the three main perspectives of disruptive innovation on competition policy, namely online platform in policy and practical perspective, enforcement perspective, and policy perspective and guidance to Indonesia. With that, I shall end my remark. I hope you can enjoy this great and interesting conference as well as the meaningful discussion ahead.
Thank you very much, Mr. Muhammad Syarkawirauf, for your opening remarks. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now enter into the first session with the theme Competition, E-commerce and Online Platform. And next, I would like to invite our panelists. Could you please come on stage? First of all, Mr. Toshan Tamhane, Senior Partner, McKinsey, India. Mr. Nadiem Makarim, CEO of Gojek Indonesia. Ms. Kia, Assistant of Chief Executive of CCS, Competition Commission of Singapore. Dr. Hassan Kakaya, Competition Policy Expert from Melbourne University, Australia. And Mr. Henry Sifilianto from the Government of Jakarta. Ladies and gentlemen, the chair of today's session is Mr. Munroki Misanam, PhD, Commissioner of KPPU. Mr. Munroki Misanam is very concerned in the field of economy. Graduated from doctoral program at Rensselaer Polytechnic Institute of Troy, New York. He is armed with experiences such as the Commissioner, Researcher's Assistant at United States Federal Trade Commission, and has become one of the economists of regulations and antitrust. He received his Bachelor of Economics from the Islamic University of Indonesia in Jakarta, took a Master of Arts in Economics in Ohio University, and became a lecturer's assistant at Ohio University. Currently, Munroki also serves as Director of Graduate Programs for Islamic University of Indonesia in Yogyakarta. And outside of his teaching jobs, Munroki is active as a researcher in various institutions, such as the Islamic Research Training Institute, the Islamic Development Bank, Jeddah, Saudi Arabia, Ministry of National Education, and Kebangsaan Malaysia University, and was asked to be a consultant and resource person in several institutions, such as the World Bank, Bank Indonesia, the Labor Department, Asian Productivity Organization, Bappenas, the Parliament, and the Asian Development Bank. Additionally, Munroki has also been a corporate advisor in some corporations such as PT Coca-Cola Indonesia, PT KAI, and JSA. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, Mr. Munroki Misanam.
Okay, this is a part of disruptive innovation. Okay, and this morning we have a forum, that's a Jakarta Innovation Forum that brings discussion about disruptive innovation and its effect on government policy, and why we are gathering in this building, because this is very important, because as we see that we are seeing currently there is an influx of information technology that are used for further innovation that are disruptive nature. And the effects of the disruptive innovation, we all know that as it is said by the CEO of Nokia, he said that, well, actually, we do no wrong. We work diligently, we work carefully, but how certainly we can tell? We are telling. So this is the nature of disruptive innovation, and one of the nature, one of the property is that the competition value is change. Last time when we talk about competition, we map it into relevant market. Okay, but now the relevant market doesn't work. Like we saw recently in this country, the competition between Gojek and what's called Angkot. Angkot is what's called city modes of transportation. Last time, Angkot and Gojek, they are not in the same relevant markets, but now they compete simultaneously to get the consumers. So this is the map completely different. So this is what's called. It is completely true what is said by the CEO of Nokia. And that's why in here we are bringing this discussion, because not only us in here, even the governments are still blind about this thing. So sometimes the regulation that is proposed, that is delivered by governments, is also improper. So that's why we present some panelists in here. The first one, we have Mr. Tosan Tamhane in my left side. Okay, before going further, I will satellite the CV. Mr. Tosan Tamhane is a senior partner at Mumbai Leach McKinsey Corporate Finance and Private Equity Practice in India. Have major buy-side sponsors, make investments across asset classes, and create value through portfolio improvement and governance. Okay, this is long, but I just take this short. So first and second is everybody in here very get used to with the face of Mr. Nadi Matane. Okay, here he's what's called founder of Gojek. The short biography is Nadi Matane is the CEO founder of Gojek, the largest on-demand mobile platform in Indonesia that offers various services such as motorcycle taxi, good and food delivery shopping, and other on-demand services. Prior to that, he worked at Car2Go as the Chief Innovation Officer, co-founder and managing director of the Zalora Indonesia, and associate at McKinsey and Company. The education is he holds a BA from Brown University. That's graduated at 2006, majoring in international relations and affairs, and an MBA from Harvard successful. Wow, it's very famous. The third one, to the left of Mr. Nadim, is Mr. Henry Siflianto, ST. He's from, I believe, municipal government of JKI, right? Okay. And he holds mechanical engineering of 10 November Institute of Technology, Surabaya, from program study conversion energy. And way to the left. Oh, no. Ms. Eng Akia. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name wrong. Is it right? Okay, Ms. Eng Akia. Akia is the assistant of Chief Executive Policy, Business and Economics at Competition Commission of Singapore, or CCS. Akia, she got trained in both competition economics and law, and has private as well as public sector experience in competition policy, economic and law. Prior to CCS, Akia co-headed the competition and regulatory practice at UNEPERA LLC, one of the largest law firms in Singapore, for about 7 years. Wow. She has also spent 8 years at the telecommunication regulators in Singapore and Hong Kong, working on a wide range of competition and regulatory issues. Now this is the last one, way to the left, my colleague, Mr. Hassan Kakaya. Okay, that's my colleague. He's a senior fellow at the University of Melbourne Law School and associate professor at the Perdana University Kuala Lumpur. Until recently, he directed the United Nations program on competition and consumer policy for 10 years. Wow, this is a very long time. He also ran extensively some tour acted. Now the most important thing is that he holds postgraduate degrees in economics from the London School of Economics, UK, and international economic law from the University of Lausanne, Switzerland. Okay, these are all the CVs of the panelists. Now we need to go further, not to waste time. We need to go further to hear the presentation from Mr. Chauhan. Thank you. Sure.
So I think, good morning everybody. Thank you, session chair and chairperson, for this opportunity. Next page. I think if you remember 4 words, okay, only 4 words on Indonesia e-commerce today. Okay? This is today 2017. The 4 words are small as a percentage. Okay? It's very small, and you will see where other countries are in comparison. So first word, it's still very small, very nascent. Second, fragmented. It is very fragmented. 90 is the number of players that we have officially been able to count. I'm sure there are several others which we are missing. Okay. Indonesia, if you look at 90, India 4 years back had 400. China 5 years back to 800 plus. So that way we are not as fragmented as some of the other markets. Okay, but compared to Indonesia today, or if you compare that to offline, it's still very fragmented. Third, well-funded. All the larger players are extremely well-funded either by venture cap and growth capital investors, or by some of the largest local conglomerates who have wanted to have a foothold in e-commerce. Okay? So, small, fragmented, well-funded. And the last one, which is the reason for excitement, huge growth potential. huge growth potential, and you will see in a minute, if you compare Indonesia digital and Indonesia e-commerce against any other benchmark, it is just saying only one thing, that the growth ahead is going to be explosive. Okay, 4 words: small, fragmented, well-funded, high growth. Okay, just keep those 4 words in mind. Next page. Okay, McKinsey charts are very, they are meant to test your eyesight. If you can read this from behind, your eyesight is perfect. I don't know what happened. Okay. Somebody liked it very much or didn't like it at all. It's fine. If you look at the 2 numbers which are on the map for each country, the first number is e-commerce as a percentage of total commerce, and the second number is the growth rate. Okay, so if you look at, for example, China, it's 16% is e-commerce as a percentage of total commerce, growing at 42%. Okay, you look at India, 2% growing at 130%. Indonesia, between 1 and 1.2%, growing at 66%. Okay. So if you look at the first number, 16,2,776, Indonesia is 1. Only 1. So depending on which market you believe Indonesia closely mirrors, the growth rate is going to be anywhere between, pick a number, it's going to be triple digit, if not high double digits. Next page. Now, the players in e-commerce, everybody is there. Everybody wants a share of the pie. You have the retailers who have made online extensions, the offline guys in online and digital commerce. You have the pure online guys who do not yet have an offline presence. And the reason I say that is globally we are seeing an interesting trend that all the offline guys want to get into online. We are seeing Walmart make some very big bold moves, Tesco make some very big bold moves. And you have all the online guys trying to create offline plays in the form of O2O marketplaces, in the form of B2B services, but there is no pure digital and non-digital. The worlds globally are merging very fast, and I bet in a couple of years' time, Indonesia will experience similar issues. So that's retailers. And then you have all the marketplaces. So you have all the shared economy players, and you have what we call classifieds marketplaces like Tokopedias, Bukalapaks, and everybody. So you have, if you add up some of these numbers, 90 players, everybody grappling for broadly similar share of the wallet of the Indonesian consumer. Okay, next page. At least by our estimates, between 2012 and say 2017 year-to-date August, 2012 saw very little investments, VC funding in the country. But if you look at Indonesia today, and Nadeem will have better view of an inside view of things, it is the darling. Indonesia is the darling of venture caps. You're seeing planes from Singapore, planes from London, all coming here to Jakarta to actually figure out where the next big Gojek or the next big Amazon is going to come from. Okay. It's all, and this has interesting implications from a competition standpoint. When you have funding, you can actually innovate, you can take risks, but also you can do stupid things. Okay. You can actually create price wars of a nature which reduces, I mean, it's amazing for the customer, you're getting massive discounts, massive cashbacks, but from a competition standpoint, you often wonder what's the path to profitability. But there are positives and negatives of the well-funding nature of what's happening in the space. So next one. Now, this is an interesting slide. We analyzed China in 2010. And if you look at the percentage of mobile phone users who access the internet through mobile, in China 2010 it was 23%, China 2016 it's 50%. Indonesia last year was 27%. Go to e-commerce. E-commerce as a share of total in China 2010 was 3%, 2016 China is close to 20%. The growth rate in China between 20 2008 and 2010 was exactly the growth rate of Indonesian e-commerce in 2 years. So if you sort of say, okay, China movie, we know how it's played out. We know the growth, we know how online commerce, digital has taken off. Indonesia is 6 to 7 years behind China by all metrics. What is very interesting is not the left-hand side, it's history. What is very interesting is today, Indonesia versus the US. Anybody in Indonesia who is digital is far more digital than even US. The time spent on mobile internet in Indonesia for a person who is on the internet is almost twice that of an American. Time spent on social media is 50% higher than that of a US person. Okay. Just go back. Yeah. Facebook, it's fascinating. 90% of all Indonesian digital consumers or digital people are also on Facebook, compared to 70% on the US. 78% of the active internet users actually purchase online in Indonesia, compared to 75% in the US. So Indonesian digital people who are already digitally connected are far more than even America. Okay? To me, that's the potential. And yet we are so small because it's just a number of people. Once you get converted, you are actually beating the best economy in the world. What will it take for that incremental conversion? And that's where the role of digital commerce and the likes comes in. Okay? So that, let's just go to the next page. These are just numbers. As McKinsey, we often have a knack of getting all numbers wrong, especially when it comes to forecasts. We get history right. We can collate all the sources. So, if Indonesian e-commerce tracked developed markets, we believe in the next 6 to 7 years, it will actually quadruple in size. But if we believe the growth is closer to China, it's going to be at least 10 times. Okay? It is a massive growth rate. Okay? We don't know. We are not hazarding a point estimate here, but either of the scenarios, this is just an opportunity which is going to continue to increase. Okay. Next page. Can you go ahead? Okay. So the question is, so where do we go from here? And there are two sets of themes here. This first is learnings from global markets. What we have seen elsewhere, what can Indonesia learn? And then the implication of digital commerce on a few critical parameters. First, innovation and entrepreneurship. It has given immense confidence to entrepreneurs to take risks, which they would not take in the physical world, given the limitations. Second, logistics and infrastructure. You look at what Amazon has done in the US in terms of job creation. Entire towns which used to be neglected around the highways and the US main roads are suddenly buzzing job hubs. Logistics jobs in the US or warehouses have grown at 4x the normal US job creation. And that's entirely due to the logistics behavior of e-commerce. By the way, it's not just the logistics and the online businesses which are forced to change or are benefiting, but also the offline businesses. So, just go back. Just go back. Yeah. So, the offline businesses are forced to change, reduce their cost structures. The economic benefits for the country, because of digital commerce, increased tax compliances, increased reporting of income, which benefits the government immensely. And lastly, benefits for the SMEs and local trade. I was in China last month, and we interviewed a lot of SMEs in a particular region, which is outside of Guangzhou. And there, the most important statement which still I remember is when we were asking the impact of e-commerce, how has their life changed? One of the ladies who's an SME actually said, because of Taobao, I'm actually able to afford a private education for my son. Okay? Because of e-commerce, I'm able to afford private education. That was a telling impact. Okay? The risks, let's go to the next page. The two risks which I just want to caution us on as I close. First, it will become a winner takes all. We have seen the number of consolidations. Last year in India, 200 online or digital entities shut or were acquired. Bloodbath will happen. There will be lots of losers and few winners. Okay, so go ahead. Just go ahead, this next page. Yeah. The next one is, from a competition standpoint, you will have massive monopolies or duopolies getting created. Look at the B2C place in China. Tmall and JD are like 88 to 90% of the entire space. And it poses lots of issues and questions as from US competition from a regulatory standpoint. With that, let me close with significant optimism and one caution, which is make sure that the bloodbath is handled appropriately. Thank you.
Thank you. Now the turn is belonging to Mr. Nadim Makrim. Okay, please, maximum is 10 minutes.
Good morning. I used to be at McKinsey, but since I stepped out of McKinsey, I've stopped using PowerPoint. So I must apologize for not having slides today. I was under the impression this is a panel discussion, but I can discuss quite openly about what I think is going to happen. And I think the previous presentation was an extremely accurate depiction of what's going to happen not only in Indonesia, but also the rest of the world. But I think what's most interesting here, I'd like to keep the topic on Indonesia specifically. A few things that I believe to be the impact of technological disruption. First, I want to point out about the term disruption. Disruption is nothing more than a large group of end users switching to a more efficient way of doing something. That's it. Disruption is not the objective of a business or a founder or an industry. It's not the objective. It is an outcome of technology providing a better alternative to something, and most of the time, it's an irreversible trend. Okay, so a good friend of mine who was a founder of one of the payment companies in India told me about this concept of Delta 4. Delta 4 is a principle used to describe a behavior that will never ever go back to where it is before. Okay, so I'll give you an example. Take one type of new digital behavior that you have, rate what it was like before from 1 to 10. Let's say before it was 2, today it's 7. It's just a subjective number, 2, 7. The difference between 2 and 7 is 5, so that's more than 4. So the threshold is 4. If that number is 4 or greater, that trend is irreversible. Okay. So most people would consider, for example, online ride-hailing, booking a taxi, car, or booking a motorcycle on the app. People would say before and after, usually the gap is bigger than 4, which means that it's an irreversible trend. Okay. So I'd like to talk about some of the irreversible trends that I see and that a lot of businesses are now capturing. The first irreversible trend is actually on logistics and mobility. I do fundamentally believe that there is no going back to actual physical hailing or call hailing of transportation. That will always be a digital process. So that's the first irreversible digital trend. The second irreversible digital trend, I would say, is actually food delivery through smartphone. You see it everywhere in the world. People don't go back. A lot of people don't bother going to malls and restaurants now on weekends because now you have food delivery coming in. The more contested trend, irreversible trend that's happening is actually that so you will stop taking this out whenever you want to make a payment, and instead you will just take your phone out. Okay, I would say those are what I can If you look at the China example, you look at the India example, those are the undisputable kind of, yeah, you can argue, but I would say it's pretty certain that all of those will be irreversible trends. So first, I'd like to, because of those irreversible trends, basically where the digital economy is going is that all transactions will go through your smartphone. Okay? All transactions, no matter big or small, will go through your smartphone. That's the simplest way of describing what the digital movement is. So what does that mean in a competitive context? In a competitive context, that means if you have a business and it is directly facing a consumer, it's a B2C business, you are inevitably going to be disintermediated by a technology player, whoever it may be. Okay? That doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing, but you will lose leverage over your consumers. So if any business that directly sells to the end consumer will be affected in one way or another by a technology layer that disintermediates that business with the final end consumer. Okay. So ironically, B2B businesses are actually far more secure in the short term. B2B businesses. But B2C businesses, some may be disrupted, some may be enhanced, but they will have no direct access to their consumer over time. So that's the most important discrepancy or competitive disadvantage of a traditional player, a non-software only player, and a software player. A software player will always come in between a product or a service and the consumer. Okay, so that's, I think, the first important effect. The second most important effect is the effect on employment and micro-entrepreneurship. No matter which way you cut it, digital technology is a huge boost for micro-entrepreneurs. Okay? Not for businesses, for micro-entrepreneurs. Any micro-sellers, micro-service providers, people who before had to go through middlemen in order to sell their product or their service, will be able to do it for free, and they will be able to make so much more money utilizing all the marketplaces. So it's a very interesting trend. You have a consolidation of power, exactly the way the presentation previously described. You have a trending of consolidation of the marketplaces, but that results in a democratization of entrepreneurial behavior at the bottom. So it's two different effects, very interesting. Yes, you get very powerful monolithic companies at the top, but in reality, at the middle to lower class entrepreneurial level, it actually blossoms as a result of that. So in terms of employment, in terms of UKM, in terms of micro-entrepreneurship, technological disruption is only positive. There's no negative there. The only negative happens when you have a very powerful player coming from another country who is fielding all their manufacturing products in a manufacturing-heavy country. That's the one risk. If someone else decides to bring a bunch of products from another country where there is a manufacturing base in that country, right? So that's one risk. But generally speaking, it's technological disruption actually flourishes micro-entrepreneurship. The third thing that I think is going to be very interesting is that the concept, there is a competitive disadvantage to actually having assets in a technology play. Okay, so when you have traditional players and you have technology players, what used to be a competitive asset was your assets. I own a factory, I own a branch, I own a store, I own a manufacturing plant. Those were a company's competitive assets. In a period of technological innovation, many of those companies will find their assets to be a liability instead. because it prevents them from actually being more flexible, and it prevents them from actually redirecting resources to what is actually going to create more efficiency. At the end of the day, technology is just an enabler to improve efficiency. That's it. At the end of the day, that is what technology does. And so for a lot of traditional businesses, the difficulty is having to reconcile whether they want to invest wholeheartedly into technology or no, because there's always a process of self-cannibalization that happens. So it's a very tricky dilemma for a lot of businesses as well. The final trend, and this is the last part, and this is actually the biggest impact part of the future. The players you see on the screen, on the largest technology players in Indonesia and in other countries, are not going to be the most disruptive force in the economy. The dawn of AI, or artificial intelligence, will be the most disruptive force in the economy. Because for the first time ever, automation will not be just affecting middle to lower class workers, they will be affecting white collar workers, okay? So what's very interesting about artificial intelligence and automation is that the jobs that are most at risk are actually the high skilled jobs. Analytics, finance, accounting, paralegal, radiology monitoring, you name it. The top jobs that parents push their kids to get degrees in because they are prestigious degrees, a lot of their functionality will be replaced by artificial intelligence, because a human, for sure, can analyze mathematically better than a machine, hands down. So the jobs that we need to prepare ourselves in the future, and the education system that we need to prepare ourselves in the future, has the focus on the ability of creative learning and relearning. It will not matter anymore what we learn in school very quickly. What matters is the rate of relearning that a human can do. Within the next 5 years or so, it will not matter what your subject expertise is. What will matter is how quickly you can relearn it every 5 years. And those are the people that will be able to remain competitive in the digital economy. That's it from my side. I hope I didn't paint too gloomy of a picture. There's positives and negatives, but the most exciting part, I think, from the immediate effect is the effect of technology as a buffer to actual social empowerment. Because that is the immediate need, or the immediate crisis, potential crisis in Indonesia today. The most important thing in the short term is actually enabling as much people to work as much as they want to and as much as they can. And I think in that sense, technology will always play a positive net effect on the economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Malik. We just heard that technology is an instrument to make a social empowerment. The first thing, and second, I make a record that through the disruptive innovation, we can make a democratization on economic activity. Yes, I completely agree. According to the data, we see that the online taxi and also what's called motorcycle, the number, correct me if I'm mistaken, I get the data is around 11,000 throughout the country. So 1 million, oh my, it's even bigger than that. Can you imagine? When suppose 1 million of this vehicle have to be owned by, company, conventional company, you can calculate how many trillion rupiah. That's okay. That has been been spent to invest in that sector. Okay, and we can think that if suppose this business has to be attributed to the conventional one, it finally will go to only 2 or 3 companies. So the consideration will be high like now. But now you can see this much money, this much investment can be shared throughout 1 million small and micro businesses. So wow, this is what I meant by democratization, as what Mr. Nadine said. Okay. Further now, the chairman will going to the government of GKA, which will be delivered by Mr. Henry. Okay. Now, Mr. Mesias.
Okay, thank you. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'm from DKI Jakarta province. I want to promoting competition through a procurement. We know in 1988 after reform, Jakarta, also Indonesia, we move on to with our country, especially in Jakarta. In Jakarta, we have many improvement, continuous improvement about procurement. Okay, I want to explain about improvement. The next. Okay, a procurement or electronic procurement is a procurement of goods or service carried out with using information technology and transaction electronic in accordance with the provision of legislation. The basic law is Presidential Regulation 54, 17, and another change. Okay, next. The next. Next. Okay. In procurement, we increase the transparency and accountability, improve market access and fair business competition, improve and increase the efficiency of the procurement process, support monitoring and auditing process with the needs and real-time information access. Okay. In procurement, the process is transparent. Every provider or vendor can see the website in architect by LKPP, procurement Republik Indonesia. Then every vendor can choose which one they product and follow the option, the procurement. Okay, the next. The benefit of procurement, get more offers, simplify the arbitration process, simplify the reliability of procurement process. For vendor, the benefit is creating healthy business competition. Every vendor can join more, I can say, friendly or a channel from with government, so more like that. Expanding business opportunities, opening the opportunity of business actors to follow the action, reduce transportation costs to join the action. So no more to face-to-face going government office to doing procurement process. The next for public society, providing opportunities for the public to know the procurement process. Okay, next. Okay, I want to differentiate, compare different procurement of goods and service. Previously, we doing the procurement by conventional. The difference with procurement is conventional. Importing and retrieving document is done by face to face, and for a procurement importing and retrieving document can be done via internet. So no more eliminate the possibility minimize to playing together government staff together. But in this process, we also need to clarify the physically document hard copy. Okay, the announcement is only done in print, with conventional newspaper, like magazine. But in procurement, the announcement is done on the internet via the existing website. So this process is more cheaper. Reduce cost. And the conventional limited information coverage area. In procurement, the information coverage area is very wide. For conventional, opening opportunities to college between procurement committees and service providers. For procurement, opportunities for collision between committees and service providers can be minimized. As I said, we can minimize and probably to eliminate. Okay, for the conventional, least transparent. For recruitment, more transparent. Okay. Also, in the now we have some positive innovation. Going to next. Yeah, the process of procurement. This is in tendering. The procedure of electronically supplying goods or service by using SPSE, Electronic Procurement System, from LPIC unit, Electronic Procurement Institution, starting from announcement of the action until the announcement of the awarding of the winner. Okay, next. Okay, this is a general term. The provider or vendor can tendering, including the process announcement process to LPIC. Before that, they must register to LPIC, then can join and check which good they can that good or service they can to follow the tenders. After that, we will competition with checking the document and checking the technical analysis and specification product, and also the price. Okay, the next. Okay, this is the general term, and the next. Okay, we have positive innovation based on President Regulation number 4 and 54. We do the procurement consolidation of similar work. This procurement not only to combine package from goods or service to become one, but this is also unify the specification and SPS, then doing the simultaneous procurement. And number 2, we increase also procurement group, local electronic catalog as well as national. Example, construction, concrete, Bina Marga, and Bogineko and another. This innovation needs to support by the head of region so that the innovation can be continued. Okay, I want to talk some simple about electronic catalog, local and national and sectoral. We have the new innovation. This is a catalog. Before I already explained about manual procurement and procurement by system electronic, and now we have some electronic catalog. This catalog is like online shopping. So every vendor we will competition and we publish the winner in the catalog. We have 3 catalog. Local is for province and national is all for Indonesia and sectoral for ministry. And that's many improving to minimize pollution. So the technology of public online shopping we adopting to make the e-catalog.
You have 2 minutes remaining, sir.
Okay. That's all for me. Thank you.
Yes, we know that in this country the problem in procurement is the high possibility of conducting a conspiracy. Like it is confirmed by the case in KPPU that around 70% of the cases that entering KPPU is about the procurement. Okay, so probably we need to go hand in hand with KPPU to set up a better way to make it procurement. Good. Now we need to go further to the next panelist, who is Ms. JICF.
Right, good morning everyone. And before I start, I want to express my appreciation, my thanks to the chairman and KPPU. Thank you very much for your hospitality, and also thank you very much for inviting Singapore to the chance to speak to the audience here this evening. Thank you very much. So I'll start with my presentation. So the interest in Singapore on e-commerce has been very strong. We all recognize that e-commerce, online platform is the future, and in fact it has arrived. It's not even in the future, but more things will come in the future. So we have been tracking e-commerce development, online development since around 2013. Since 2013 to today, we have carried out quite a number of studies, a number of research papers. We have conducted seminars, something similar to this, to exchange views with the business, the consumers. We have also done quite a number of monitoring exercises to understand what is happening on the ground, what is happening to the businesses, how consumers are using online services. So I'm going to take this time today to just share Singapore's experience with the audience. Next slide. Okay, just to share very briefly, this is a table that I've extracted from a handbook that we published in August this year. Just a very quick summary of some of the major markets within ASEAN e-commerce. A few of the speakers earlier have mentioned about how big the potential is for e-commerce in Indonesia. Just to show you, this is for the other markets, Malaysia, Philippines, Singapore, and others. Really, this is the growth potential is enormous. I think the word is enormous, and I think that's something that all of us in this room are looking forward to. Next slide, please. Okay, so just a very brief summary of some of the industry that have been disrupted or have experienced a major change. You can see it could be accommodation, flight booking, land transport, especially yesterday during the dinner, quite a number of colleagues actually spoke about land transport being an area of interest. Cosmetic beauty products, fashion. So most of us today, you tend to go online to buy your things. You may go to the shop to try, to explore, to touch your gadgets, but at the end of the day, you look at the price differential, you think that in the shop it might cost you a few $100s more, and then you go back online after you check out the items in the shop, and then go online to buy. So that's the reality on the ground, and these are the few sectors from the study that we did that are experiencing the most disruption. So just very quickly, I don't have much time, so I'm not going to go through all the opportunities and the next slide is talking about challenges. But what we have heard earlier today is really that from the business point of view, from the consumer point of view, there are lots of opportunities out there. There are cost savings for a country like Singapore with have high manpower costs, high rental costs, limited space, and a very small market. It is godsend in a way because for now, businesses, SME, micro businesses, they actually have the ability to enter and sell their products much more cheaply, much easily, and they can actually reach a much bigger audience compared to the past. Next slide. But what this means is that there's actually lots of threats as well. All of us, while thinking about the opportunities and the good things that come along with e-business, sometimes we tend to forget that there are actually existing businesses, incumbents, they're actually facing a lot of pain from these disruptors. They are also being sometimes bypassed in the market, they are no longer important. For example, we used to buy our air tickets from the brick and mortar shop, the travel agents. Most of us now, we no longer think about them anymore. We go online to airline's website, we go to online travel agents to buy on this. We no longer need to go to every shop, call them up, and ask for prices. Now there are lots of web aggregators out there who basically give you a full suite of prices from different airlines, different hotels, etc. Right? So competition is keener now. It's a lot more difficult to do business because of some of the incumbent businesses. And you find that the challenge not only comes from your neighbors, not only from the brick and mortar stores, but also from the new online businesses. Right? And what is very special about online business is that there's something called the network effect. Right? The bigger it grows, the bigger, like for example, Google. Google is always the example. The bigger it grows, the more people use it. The more people use it, the more businesses will advertise on it, and the more people will go on it again. And as it grows, the network effect becomes stronger. It actually makes it very hard for new entrants to be able to enter the market thereafter. Next slide, please. So what are some of the competition issues that we face in the online market? There are a lot. So if you just do a Google, you'll find that there are many investigations against Google. Right? In Europe, you have also seen investigations against like Booking.com, which is the online hotel booking websites. There are lots of cases now involving online markets. Right? But what I can do today is not to go through every one of them, but to just speak briefly about some of the experience we have in Singapore. First one is about the network effect I spoke about. So increasingly we are seeing certain companies, certain online companies growing bigger, stronger in Singapore. And it makes it harder and harder for our platforms to compete effectively. Right? So very soon you'll see a few very dominant players in the market. Second one, you can put up the slide. Sorry, the slide before. Yeah. Traditional businesses are threatened by e-commerce activities. So many of these incumbents, they're not going to sit around and just hope that they have a chance of recovery. So what they will do is that they tend to react and retaliate. Right? And what we do see is that they might start thinking of engaging in anti-competitive conduct activities to protect themselves. Right? And three, the more recent development is this focus on consumer data. So consumer data has become more and more an important source of market power. I'll speak to that further. Next slide, please. Okay, so these are some of the cases that we faced in Singapore. I'll share briefly just to give you a flavor of some of the cases that happened. Alright, so the one on Jakarta Financial Advisors, this happened in 2013. So what happened was that there was this online company called iFast, and traditionally they have been a platform, online platform for financial advisors to buy and sell unit trusts. Right? But what happened was that they decided that given that they have a very established online platform, they wanted to sell insurance as well. The moment they entered into the insurance market, because of the cost structure that they have, which is a lot lower compared to the traditional financial advisors, they wanted to offer a 50% commission rebate on life insurance products that it sells. Immediately, within the few hours of their announcement, the financial advisors, very big ones within the market, they came together, they discussed, and they agreed that they're going to pressure this IFAS to actually withdraw their offer. Right? So within 4 days of the offer being announced, IFAS actually withdrew the offer and actually said that this offer is no longer valid. Because of that, CCS received complaints from consumers to say that it's a good deal, it's something good for consumers. Why is this offer being withdrawn so quickly? And when IFAS was asked, they said that they were pressured to put this product out of the market, right? And in fact, it was almost 2 years later when IFAS subsequently re-entered the market with insurance products. And it was after CCS has actually announced an infringement decision against the financial advisors. Right? So this is a case in point where, from our perspective, from CCS perspective, we needed to step in very quickly, decisively, to take action against somebody who is trying to stop another new player from entering the market. Another example I'll share is actually on the online food delivery services. So this is something that is pretty recent over the past 2 years. We see quite a number of companies coming in. I don't know whether it's familiar here, like Food Panda, Deliveroo, I'm not sure whether these names are familiar, but another player is Uber Eats. This parent is Uber, so that most probably is something quite familiar. They come in, they take your order through your phone, through your website, and then they will go to the restaurants, pick up the food, and deliver to the house for a fee. Right? So in Singapore, the incumbent grew quickly, and then subsequently there were a few new entrants that came in.
2 minutes left.
So there was company against the incumbent, one of the bigger ones, that they have entered into exclusive agreements, once again, to block new entrants. Was that the abuse of dominant position, trying to use its own market power to stop new entrant? So while we are looking at it, trying to decide whether we want to continue to investigate, based on our preliminary investigation, we found that the market was growing actually very well. Even though with this exclusive agreement, it was quite limited, and the new entrants were actually growing very well. So what we did was that instead of going into a full-fledged investigation, we actually made an announcement to say that we are monitoring the market. With that announcement, the company that was actually using exclusive agreement actually withdrew its exclusive agreement, and the market actually progressed quite well. We did a review earlier this year actually, and we found that the incumbent was actually overtaken by a new entrant in terms of market size. So it shows that the market is actually doing well. Next slide, please. The third example I have is actually on the third-party taxi booking apps. It might be a little bit overtaken by them, but this was when the apps first came in, when it's just meant for booking taxis. We were actually aware of this development, we were keeping track of the development, and there were quite a lot of reaction overseas whereby some countries banned such apps. There were lots of protests on the roads, taxi drivers were not happy, etc. And what we did was that we worked with the Land Transport Authority while they're thinking about the regulatory framework. They were thinking, what should they do with this bunch of new apps that are coming in without their taxi fleet, but obviously able to influence the supply of taxis in the market. And what we did with them was that we actually studied the market a bit more, spoke to different stakeholders, understood the competition impact of such entry, and what gave our input to the LTA, and they came up with a very light touch regulatory regime, whereby they just require registration by these apps that are being offered, and it's very light touch when it comes to maybe consumer safety and giving them very minimal requirements. Right? And I just want to end off with the latest, which is more on data. I mentioned just now that data is becoming more and more important. It's becoming like the new currency when it comes to market power. And that's one area that we are trying to understand more and understand the role of data analytics in terms of market power and changing the competitive landscape. So if I summarize in terms of learning points, next slide please. JICF, as we were dealing with e-commerce and online platforms, is that you actually need to look more closely at what these online platforms are doing. You need to understand their business case and the impact before you're able to intervene in a correct manner. And to do so, you actually it helps a lot to do market monitoring, to do studies, research, to keep up to speed in terms of what's happening on the ground. And finally, even with information, there's always a constant tension between giving room, flexibility for the market to grow and innovate, while at the same time needing to step in quickly to prevent certain barriers and impediments for the market to develop. So that's all I have this morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you, EJ. Next is the journalist, Mr. Kaya, please.
Good morning. Honorable Chairman Mohammed. Distinguished colleagues, thank you very much for the invitation. It's an honor to be here. Let me first just congratulate the organizer for having chosen the theme of digital economy, because as a main theme for this year, International Conference on Competition, we all know that competition is about removing barriers to entry, consumer welfare, and defending the process of competition. All of these issues are directly relevant to digital economy. Now, in addition to these objectives, I think we also say that, as which are part of the enforcement of competition law, there is also another big chapter on advocacy. Advocacy for better regulations, for overall coherence between various competition policies, and that is also directly relevant to the theme of digital economy. The previous speakers have already looked at the size of the digital economy and the issue, so I will skip the first slides. Please, can you move on? Next, please. Next. That's the outline. So I will focus on two chapters, if you like. One is to address some issues which are directly to policy, competition policy, and its relevance to digital economy, and then some issues which are relevant to enforcement. Next, please. I'll skip this because I think the size, only to say, next please, that the UNCTAD produced a report on digital economy which was released this year, 2nd of October, and it provided some details. First time, I think, in the world there have been any new data on the size of the digital economy, with breakdown of users, business to business, business to consumer, and that is available, the document is available on the website, so I would encourage you to look at this. Next, please. Before this, can you come back here? I think the point that perhaps is important from at the global level of the discussion from Indonesia and also for the ASEAN is that the digital economy provides enormous opportunity for economic growth and for fighting poverty. And in that context, the Indonesian government has participated very actively in designing the Sustainable Development Goals, which followed up from the Millennium Development Goals. And I think there are a number of issues that are worthwhile mentioning. The first is that the digital economy can promote and empower women as entrepreneurs and as traders. This is extremely important, and that relates to target 5B. The second is that e-commerce and digital economy can actually increase productive activities, create decent jobs, entrepreneurship, creativity, and innovations. It also contributes to development of medium-sized and small enterprises, and including through access to ICT, enabling financial services, financial inclusion, etc., and that is related to Goal 8.3. Promotion of SMEs, particularly through the global value chain, which are very important in terms of investment and international trade, and it can help increasingly to promote the export to developing countries. Next, please. Now, there are a number of advantages and opportunities which are offered by digital economy. I list some of them there. Let me just emphasize for a large country such as Indonesia, but also the other member countries of ASEAN, I think rural areas tend to somehow to be marginalized in the process of benefiting from economic growth and development. And digital economy, through not only e-commerce, but a number of activities, can contribute enormously to this work and meeting overall development activities, including in the, as I said earlier, like the global value chain, which allow SMEs through processing, distribution network, and reaching consumers and customers either in remote areas, but also outside the regions. Next, please. To summarize, I think it's in order to place the context of the policy and the enforcement issues, there are interrelated policies and regulations that are directly relevant to the digital economy. It's clearly very important to have a competitive environment in which barriers to entry for both small and medium enterprises are very important. And this is critical because traditional rules and regulations and products which normally were classified as goods and services, today they are neither goods nor service. And it's very difficult to know which rule and regulation applies. So it's very, very important to pay attention to regulatory regime and not to add another layer of regulation that is likely to hamper the growth of this sector. Important is ICT and other infrastructure, and this is critical. I mean, it's important to talk about delivery and ordering through the internet, but a very small but critical important element, for example, is the postal address of a location of a consumer or business is extremely important. So if you do not have the postal address, which is clearly easy to map using GPS and others, clearly it limits the opportunities both for delivering, reaching consumers, but also could be SMEs or as customers or a supplier of service. E-payment is another important area, but I think this is very important because without a valuable system of payment, clearly here this will be a hamper. An example where regulations and no barriers can be very useful. Some 10 years ago, the main player was eBay. China was the largest economy, and there was a small player by the name of Jack Ma entered the market. And he entered the market because the main challenge was that consumer lacked confidence between whether the goods would be delivered or not. So initially, his intervention was to act as intermediary, that the payments are made, but the payment is released only once the goods are delivered, and there was satisfaction. At the beginning, in the first 7 years, China did not regulate the use of payments by Jack Ma. It's only when the economy grew and when the Alibaba payment system became a major player, it has actually been turned into a system. So there are opportunities where striking the right balance of when required payments regulations, for example, in the sector here, is needed and where is it allowed business to enter. So striking a balance by allowing a policy space and space for business to develop, and at the same time protecting consumers and legitimate needs is something that is important but critical, difficult to strike. E-commerce also, I think most countries have already set up themselves legislation in e-commerce. Indonesia has one, but several other Asian countries haven't. So it's important to ensure that there is coherence at the regional level and also in conformity with other international norms, including, for example, the OECD guidelines or the UN Consumer Protection Guidelines last year. Trade logistics. Let me also say that skill development is a very important activity. So to be aware of what is available, we heard earlier how savvy the Indonesian consumers are on average on using media, whether it's social or others. But it's very important also for people to have confidence and to shift their habits into the use of new technology. Challenges. Well, some of the challenges, as very briefly, unreliable, costly power supply. This is part of the infrastructure mentioned earlier. Limited awareness of skills regarding how to implement to use e-commerce. Insufficient or inconsistent laws and regulations. Some of them might be outdated, might need to be updated. Limited or deficient transport and logistic infrastructure. And I guess in the case of Indonesia, with 9,000 islands, this is a major challenge. Lack of online or alternative payment facilities. Clearly, this is a major concern for confidence of consumers in the market. Low income levels, low purchasing power is not an alternative. But there are also cultural differences. In other words, some people actually prefer to face-to-face contact with the trader or rely on cash. Next, please. Next. So let me now look at some issues which I said would fall. And I see that competition law and policy has broadly a chapter on enforcement of the law, but there is not a chapter on advocacy, which is, I think the KPPU has done a larger part of work, which is to talk to the other ministries who work. And I was impressed yesterday when I saw all the awards given to the other stakeholders, from the police to the Ministry of Trade, communication, and the rest. And I think this is very important because those are friends of competition, those are people who likely to advocate and seek overall coherence.
2 more minutes to finish, sorry. 2 more minutes to.
Okay, well, I think I have to move. Can I move to the next slide, please? So among the advocacy issues that I would like to mention is coherence with other ministries. I mean, certainly ensuring that overall coherence allow for new opportunities in the sector is something that is extremely important. Also allowing or removing barriers for allowing new enterprises to rise. We heard that there are large platforms today, but I believe there is room for new platforms, both at the national and regional level, and work, and many of them may not work. So we need to ensure that this work goes on. Next, please. Advocacy of the regulatory framework. I mentioned earlier that I think there are certain types of transactions and goods that definitely would not qualify in the traditional sense as such, and therefore the existing regulations handling this goods, whether through custom borders, for example, particularly cross-border trade, would require also careful attention as well. Next, please. Now, an enforcement issue, in principle, we say that competition law and policy will have the same tool, whether it's in the traditional trades or e-commerce. But however, some of these tools might not be able to take account of all the existing features and the dynamic features, which previous speaker also mentioned, that when markets are developing extremely fast, it's become very difficult to define the relevant market, because even the time to take to define the relevant market, by the time you finish, the market has changed. So there are challenges in terms of taking this. Second, next please, issue to ask is that many of the markets are two-sided markets. In other words, for example, you have certain goods which are free, quote unquote, but in fact they are not free because you pay it through your own data, and it allows for access into goods. So the market becomes two-sided. On one side you provide a good, but you are selling from the second. So the two-sided market becomes a new feature of the challenge for competition authority. But also, some of these markets depend on the number of participants. If you took out WhatsApp, for example, it's only useful because there's a very large number of participants in a particular market. And that poses new challenges for the competition authority in designing new tools and approaches. Next, please. Another element which I think relevant to ASEAN in general is to draw on the experience of the EU and see what were the challenges that have been addressed there. Well, some of these issues that rose there are the following. One, in general, bans on online sale by manufacturers. It will not allow the manufacturer to sell the same product in brick and mortar shop and also online. Agreement limiting the absolute quantity or percentage sold online. Selective distribution schemes, and the so-called cross-platform parity agreement, for example, in the hotel line, which is another issue. So some of these issues are likely to rise also in the ASEAN context, and it might require that the ASEAN Competition Authority might need to consult each other about the appropriate approaches, methodologies, and tools for this. So next, please. Next element is question of unilateral conduct. Please. One of the most vertical agreement I already mentioned, but let's move on to unilateral conduct. Before. Next. Unilateral conduct or abuse of dominance. No, please, can you go forward, not backwards? I have only 1 minute. Next. Concluding remark. All right, I'll have to stop. You will have time to read the questions. Now, I think in my concluding remark is say that by encouraging other bodies and other regulators to harmonize, to have a coherence in the regulatory framework, I think this is a very, very important element in terms of advocacy. But also, I think paying attention to the cross-border trade, particularly at the ASEAN level, is something that will be very important. Ensuring a coordinated and effective system of intellectual property and protection of the rights, particularly ensuring that the benefits for business are protected, is something that is very important because it will encourage further investment and treatment in these sectors. There are also questions on the big data, cybersecurity, which are extremely important, particularly as they relate to consumer confidence in the market and trading online. Without consumer confidence in this new form of market, clearly some sector or segment of the market might continue to develop, but a large part of the market might be marginalized and the potential benefit might not be maximized. Thank you.
Okay, thank you all the panelists. Before I giving the session to the participants in here, since there's a proposal from Mr. Nardin that he has to go now, so there will no chance for you guys to ask to him. But I want to ask him that one question, please. Okay, according to this is part of disrupting. How come you manage? How come you provide the money to the mechanism, such as one part that I said like in here is that you give a bonus to every driver 300,000 rupiah in a single day whenever he or she can reach 14 trips while the ARCO still going. So how can you manage that from granted the money that you take this? Because this is very important, very, very crucial, because relating to the competition. This could be accused of predatory pricing or giving a subsidy, something like that. Could you please?
Sure. So we actually have a 80,000 bonus per day for a two-wheel driver. But for four-wheel it is higher. So when we came in, for example, in Gojek, when we came in, the price per kilometer of Gojek was roughly about 4,000 per kilometer. An average kilometer is about 5 kilometers. 3 months later, our competition our Malaysian founder competition came in and offered 5,000 rupiah flat anywhere. So it's practically free, basically. So we had to engage at that level. So basically, yes, it's true, there is a subsidy model for all of our businesses. Of course there is. But it's primarily driven by competition. Otherwise, there would be no Gojek. There would just be a foreign ride-hailing company in Indonesia. So we had a choice at that stage. Do we engage and become Indonesia's national champion? Or do we just let ourselves get acquired by a foreign company?
Where does the money come from?
Investment.
Investment from
Everywhere. And local investors, foreign investors.
Oh, okay.
That's the fundraising cycle, yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, this is good. Thank you, Ms. Radim. You're a
Well, 20 seconds for that music. Good morning, everyone. Pak Sarkawi Rao, Chairman of Indonesian KPPU, my friends, even my mentor, my partner as well, and distinguished guest, panelist, speaker, ladies and gentlemen. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. May peace be upon all of us. I will not deliver that keynote speech. What I'm going to do probably it's only talks or words. Yeah. I try to absorb the dynamic within these rooms from the Ibu dan Bapak who raised these questions. Number one is I would like to make the bold statement and a bit provoking in saying that Indonesia nowadays is the largest market in the world for the digital economy or digital activities. Why? We know the biggest country with their population is China. But China, they have their own ways. They have prepared themselves more than 10 years ago. They are not allowing Google, instead they have their own Baidu. And a lot of other policies, China. India, so does India. They have their own policies, they have their own ways dealing with digital tsunami echo. America is positioned as the one who always introduced the openness. There is no more physical sovereignty with the internet. And after China, India, America, who is the biggest market in the world? Who is the most populous country in the world? It's Indonesia. Then this is what we use. Using the market Indonesia, the economic of scale of the market Indonesia as a bargaining powers to deal with quote-unquote the tsunami of the digital. That is number one. Why I'm talking like this one? Because we have to deal with the big platforms, with the big over-the-tops. You can name it, either Google, Facebook, Twitter, whoever it is. Indonesia, we always welcome for any business, for any investment in this country. However, we requested the foreign investors who are doing or conducting the business in the country, they have to add the value to Indonesia. They have to add the value to the people in Indonesia. I have to underline this one. Again, we welcome to everyone. Why? Because we have to compete with other countries. The message from my president, Pak Jokowi, is very clear that we have to position Indonesia in the international landscape, that we have to make Indonesia as competitive as possible toward this digital tsunami. Okay, I admit that from infrastructure, ICT infrastructure point of view, we are not number one. Someone help with the Palapari slides, please. We are not number one. We are still number 4 in the ASEAN countries even, after Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, and Indonesia. And the challenge is different. The other countries is pretty much like countries, but Indonesia is pretty much archipelago countries. So we have to connect the whole countries. Right now, out of more than 500 agencies throughout the country, probably only 80% are connected by broadband. Unlike again, Singapore, Malaysia, Thailand, they're pretty much connected by broadband, not Indonesia. This is one of the reasons that why logistics is becoming the high-cost economy in this country. We, Indonesia, spend more than 20, or probably around 20 to 24% of our GDP for logistics. We would like to reduce this one. So that's why the vision of Pak Jokowi, of Vice President Kala, is to build what we call is focus on infrastructures, building the maritime fulcrums, the toll sea. The objective is how can we reduce again the logistic cost. Why logistic cost? Because logistics is one of the major issues out of 7 major issues that we have to address in order for Indonesia to develop the digital economy. Indonesia aims to reach 130 billion US dollars digital economy by 2020. That will make Indonesia is the largest digital economy in the region. I took the definition, the digital economy. Digital economy is not only retail or online, but all activities, the value add processes, maximizing or using the digital technology in order to develop the economy. 130 billion US dollars. But we have 7 major issues that we have to address. Number 1, human capital, talent. So that's why even our unicorn like Pak Nadim of Gojek, Tokopedia, they still have to hire the talent to Bangalore. But nowadays we are discussing. I'm in the extensive discussion with the Minister for the lower educations of how I'm going to address this talent or human capital issues. That is number 1. Number 2, how I'm going to provide funding as a seed capital to the startups. Third, taxation. How I'm going to impose or apply the tax policy. Do we have to adopt the conventional tax policy and apply it to this digital things? I don't think so. No ways. Number 4, logistics. I already mentioned. So that's why we build infrastructures. We build a lot of toll. We build a lot of highway. We build a lot of the seaport. We build a lot of the airports. Again, the reasons, the main objective, focusing on this infrastructure in this country is to reduce the cost of logistics. How can the flow of goods and the flow of people's cost is reduced from time to time? Number 4. Number 5 is consumer protections. Number 6, cybersecurity. Number 7 is ICT infrastructures. Yeah. Right now, we are focusing. Who would like to build? You can see that the green one. The green one is the infrastructure ICT, fiber optic, separate cable, inline fiber optic, developed by the operators. But the operator said that, Rudy, I don't want to build in the eastern part of Indonesia. I don't want to build in the area where they don't have market. It's not physical, it's not financially or business-wise feasible to me. Then I asked them to put in writings. Yeah. And then government step in by introducing the affirmative policy. If that is the case, then government step in. To the government, it's not about financially feasible or business feasible, but for the government is economically viable. So that's why the objective of having this program called Palaparing program, we introduced this one. This is structured SPPP, public-private partnerships. So this is not coming from the annual budget. Indonesian annual budget is only 2,000 trillion. And my budget, my ministry budget, only 5 trillion. And this project require 18 trillion, 1/8. Almost 4 times of my annual budget. How can we deal with this one? So the way we structure SPP, public-private partnerships. So we have 3 PPPs program right now. Call it Palapari. The objective is by 2019, the whole regions throughout the country, at least in the capitals, will be connected by broadband. Having this one, by 2019, Indonesia will be number 2 in the ASEAN. We cannot compete with Singapore, of course. This is uncomparable, it's not fair anyway. Yeah. So, we'll be number 2. And then, on top of this Palaparing project, government also preparing, my ministry is preparing for our own satellite. Decision will be made by end of 2018. Yeah. And government is doing the leapfrog technology, acquiring the new latest technology. Even the Indonesian operators such as Telkom, Indonesia, they don't have this kind of satellite. The satellite that we will procure is high throughput satellite. This is high speed internet satellite. It's not communication satellite. So I think nothing wrong if because sekali in Indonesia that the government is ahead of the operators in procuring the technology. Why not? Why? Because I have a joke at least. How can we connect 200,000, 262,000 schools throughout the country? How we can connect almost 10,000 villages, hospitals in the country? How can we connect 75,000 villages, offices eventually in this country? So after this Palaparing project, we will go to the high throughput satellite. The objective is by 2024, 2025, the numbers that I shared with you all will be connected by the broadband. So this is the plan for Indonesia. It shows that Indonesia in the position not to stop, not to block any development in the digital economy. Even we would like to position Indonesia as the largest digital economy country in the region at least. Again, coming back to the market, we have 261,000 market. When I talk to Google, to Facebook, to everyone, I said, we welcome you to have a business in the country, but you have to create the value add in the country. Pak Sarkawi, I dare to say to them that we have to apply, we have to provide some sort of level playing field. Whether international operators or the local operators. My local friends such as Nadim or someone else said, really, how come that the foreign operator, foreign OTT, foreign over-the-top company, foreign platform, they don't pay the tax, I have to pay the tax. So I got a complaint from them. So that's why by end of this year, we would like to issue what we call is the minister's decree on the over-the-top. That will make everyone level playing field in this country. Otherwise, Pak Sarkawi will keep yelling at me. Ladies and gentlemen, this is to show that, again, Indonesia is very focused on dealing with this issue. We have to change our mind. We have to change our mindset. Recently, I read in the newspaper that in the airport authority, they will provide full for online taxi. Come on. Where is the value that come from? Because the online taxi, their quote-unquote selling point, when the customer can get benefit is based on 2 things. Number 1, it is based on the agreement. Second, at any time. It is not hailing ride. This is not hailing taxi. So if they put in the special zone in the airport, I will come to that one, but I don't think that they can create a value, And then they put a sticker, which is airport taxi. Come on. I haven't seen any this kind of policy in the world. Probably Indonesia would like to be the first, I think, but to me that is the first one, but it will not create the value particularly for the customer. At the end, what we are doing, whether anti-monopoly things or something like that, is at the end what we are doing is to the best interest of the people, to the best interest of the country. Again, by showing this infrastructure, it's shown to us that Indonesia will be in the forefront of digital changes in any aspect in our lives. I would like also to address the question raised by a lady who sits at the back on the protections of the individual data. Government, my ministry is preparing the law of protection for individual data. But dealing with this legislations, this will take probably 1 year, 2 years or something like that. So that's why by last year, end of 2016, my ministry, I sent the decree, the minister decree with regard into the protection of the individual data. And I was criticized as well. Rudy, how come that you issued the decree without any higher legislation, which is because undang-undang or law? I said, who cares? Do I have to wait until the next 3 years to issue the minister decree? I said, no way. Cannot. The digital is coming right now. Then we have to deal right now. It is not perfect, yes. But I believe we are not there yet. Yes, I do believe that one, but I do believe also, I more believe that we will be there. Ladies and gentlemen, again, I will not provide you with any flashy words or something like that on it, but I never been in the government before I was appointed as a minister by the president. I spent the whole of my life in the private sector, so that's why probably the way I share with you, the way I talk, the way I communicate with everyone is something like this one. Be direct, be blunt. And I believe that Indonesia, even though we have to deal with a lot of issues, particularly, I know the challenge of Indonesian KPPU dealing with this one. Because I think what we have to do is change our mindset. Whose mindset? Government mindset, officers mindset, regulatory mindset, and operators mindset with regard to this one. One of examples on the how do we manage the OTT. I think I believe that some of you are using Spotify, are enjoying the Spotify, the musics, right? And they come to my office. What do I have to do in this country? I want to sell my service, which is music service. And I open Spotify to observe. One, the easiest way is you can represent by the cellular operator in the country. Why cellular? Because 99% the one that assessing the Spotify services are through cellulars. Or you establish your own company here and comply with the local regulation here. And finally they said, okay, I will start an operator because I do not know the magnitude or the size of the market in Indonesia. I think that's fair enough. And I think this is very rational decision from Spotify. So we would like to welcome everyone again, but the reason that we would like to issue regulation on OTT by end of this year is to address three main issues. Number one is customer service. Government, my ministry always prioritize consumers, people's customer service. So then I have to deal only with the machines or something like virtually dealing from the customer service. Second is right and obligation from legal point of view. The third one is level playing field, to provide level playing field in terms of what? One of them is from tax point of view. So that is the main reason we would like to issue the OTT regulations will be issued by them end of the years. And from the processes point of view, I will not sign any decree without proper public consultations. We need public consultation because we have to keep all stakeholders, ecosystems in the loop. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to extend my congratulations to KPPU who held the second Jakarta International Competition Forum. And again, by this I would like to conclude my not really as a keynote speakers, but I would like to share some with you that Indonesia, in a nutshell, Indonesia will not block the development of digital. Consequences, then we have to change our mind, which is change our mindset. Not to become the conventional mindset, but the digital mindset. Again, I believe that Indonesia will be the largest digital economy in the region. Thank you very much. Wassalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Sorry, I must apologize. Actually, I supposed to be with you this morning, but I was with 5,000 students and their parents who are graduated today this morning, and I love to be with them. I love to be with the students. I love to be with the universities. They are our futures. One more thing I will share with you. One second. 2030. Why I always use 2030? What will be the Indonesia by 2030? What do you think you are by 2030? Jokingly, I always said as well in the Paisan Forum that in the front of the bankers and financial people, who will be the largest consumer bankings by 2030? And why 2030? 2030, Indonesia will be in the peak of bonus demography, where the number of population in Indonesia in the productive age twice than the non-productive one. That is number one. Second, from economic point of view, our GDP, last year our GDP by MER's market exchange rate was 940 billion US dollars, say 1 trillion US dollar, but by 2030 will be 2.5 trillion, as size as the whole ASEAN countries right now. And 12 years down the road is very short. And what will be in the 2030? And on the consumer banking sector, I said the biggest consumer banking, if we are able to change the regulations in the country following these digital changes, will be one of them will be Gojek. It's not the traditional banking right now. Why? They have payment system right now. Why? They have capability in data science. I'm using the Gojek as well. So Pak Nadiem knows where I took his two-wheel motorcycle. What is my meals for breakfast, lunch, and dinner? What do I have to spend during the weekends? So that's why if the banks are not following what the Gojek thinks, and Gojek will be the largest consumer banking by 2030. This will make Indonesia different by that time. And I must apologize again in this morning, with 5,000, they are the futures of Indonesia. They are graduated in the 22 years old. They will be in the 34, 35 years old by 2030. And the government of Indonesia, we have to ensure that we we preserve the pathways for them really to make Indonesia the largest economy, the largest country in the region. Again, thank you very much for your work.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rudiantara. So, Mr. Rudiantara, could you please kindly stay on stage? Sir, could you please come back on stage? We will do a photo session, and to join Mr. Rudiantara, I would like to invite all panelists, where all the participants, all the panelists especially, and the commissioners take pictures together with Mr. Rudiantara. Ladies and gentlemen, this is your panelists, this is the commissioners with the Minister, Mr. Rudiantara, for the second Jakarta International Competition Forum, Disruptive Innovation, Competition Policy, and Challenges to Emerging Markets. Can we please give a round of applause to everyone? Thank you very much.
sebenarnya revisi aturan undang-undang taksi online kemarin kan lebih kurang sama dengan aturan yang sebelumnya, hanya ada 3 poin yang berbeda. Kalau misalnya dari sisi KPPU sendiri sebenarnya seperti apa?
Ya, kalau kami terkait dengan pengaturan taksi konvensional dan online, prinsipnya adalah bagaimana masing-masing model bisnis ini bisa tumbuh dan berkembang di Indonesia. Yang konvensional pun bisa memiliki bisnis, tapi yang new entrants juga tidak boleh dihambat dengan regulasi pemerintah. Nah, tinggal sekarang bagaimana mendorong yang konvensional ini untuk juga ikut men-switch bisnisnya dari platform konvensional ke platform yang berbasis digital itu, sehingga kompetisinya menjadi lebih sehat dan ujung-ujungnya yang diuntungkan adalah konsumen. Ini your experience, how to manage online taxi conventional when you study around the world.
Well, this has been a topic of great debate in many countries. That I should say that the solutions have not always been the same. But what competition authorities in general have been advocating is that we need to understand what is the policy objective of regulations and whether the regulations, actually we still have the same market failures when we look at the market now and with the online providers, and if we still need the same regulations or not. This doesn't mean that we already have an answer, that the answer should be A or should be B, but it means that we need to go and review the regulation and see whether it is still appropriate. And sometimes what we see is that the regulation may be blocking or deterring entry by the disruptors, but at the same time the existing regulation may be preventing the existing players to respond competitively to the new entrants because they are obliged by several regulations that in some way restrain their ability to compete. So what competition authorities in general have defended is that we need to see for each type of company what kind of regulation is actually proposed, so that you can create a level playing field. A level playing field doesn't mean treating necessarily all with the same regulation, because sometimes regulation that is applied to certain type of players is not adequate to be applied to other types.
Itu sebabnya ya Pak Jokowi dalam beberapa kali kesempatan beliau selalu menyampaikan bahwa ke depan ekonomi Indonesia itu harus didorong untuk segera mengadaptasi perkembangan model bisnis baru. We have the new business model, how to adjust our business, also I think very fundamental our mindset to the new models in our business today.
Perkembangan digital ini sesuatu yang tidak bisa kita tahan dan tidak boleh kita tahan. Berkaitan dengan masalah regulasi, bagaimana meregulasinya, kami berprinsip the best regulation is less regulation. Karena dinamikanya luar biasa, kita tidak boleh mengatur terlalu ketat. Karena kita harus bisa memberi ruang bagi bangsa, terutama bagi anak-anak muda berinovasi.